Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Duraney, and I'm your host. Tina, it's great to see you.
Same here. Thank you very much, Drew.
It's my pleasure. So I always like to, in the beginning, thank the individual who introduced me to my guest. So once again, it's probably like the 20th time, Frank Agan. Thank you, sir, for introducing me to Tina Huggins. I never doubt your introductions, and Tina is one of the best. So thanks, Frank. Why is Tina on? Well, you guys know I always in the beginning talk about how we're taught that life is linear. With the best intentions, we're taught by friends and family that if we do the right thing, whatever that is, A plus B plus C, D is going to happen. Life is linear until it's not, right? We always get this there's always an external circumstance, something that presents itself and gets in the way of one of those letters and kind of derails our life from a straight path to a more circuitous one. When that adversity happens, depending on what the type of a self-awareness we have, I always say there's like three types of people out there, and for Tina's sake, three types of women out there. Woman number one has so many blind spots, she doesn't know what she doesn't know. So she doesn't notice that things might be an opportunity or doesn't notice what's in front of her that she can change. So she goes through life just on autopilot, nothing changes. Then there's woman number two. She has heightened self-awareness, yet that adversity, man, I'm a victim. Everything else is to blame. It's life doing it to me. I can't change anything. And she lives her life the way she's always lived it. And on her deathbed, she's got a ton of regrets. And then there's woman number three. That's Tina Huggins, is woman number three. Heightened self awareness, sees that adversity and says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's not a barrier. That adversity is an opportunity to take massive action and do something different and change the course of my life for the better. I'm going to become a stronger woman because of it. So, with that said, woman number three, Tina Huggins, if you could, for the audience, reach back as far as you need to for that defining moment, whether it was the tap on the shoulder, the whisper in the ear, or what I needed, the 2x4 upside the head, that shifted you from whatever woman you were to the woman number three, the woman you are now, the stronger Tina Huggins.
Well, I can't really say that there's one, but the one that started the shift was there was a series of fights that I had been in with my husband, but the last one was when I was forced to break his nose because he was bending the door on my van trying to get me out of the van. And I broke his nose and he tossed me across the yard. All the broken bones prior to that, I did not see as abuse. So in this case, I had a dislocated leg, and this one I saw as abuse. And it took me a few months still, and I stepped out of that marriage. And I think that is when I became woman number two, hunting for and having the issue aspects, not so much that that I was the victim. I was starting out of the victimhood at that point, just trying to figure life out.
Wow. How impactful in many ways that is. And how long ago was that?
That was 22 years ago. 22 years ago in June.
Wow. Well, you had the guts, really the willingness and the ability to do it at that time. And it kind of takes both the willingness and the ability to take a step forward. So when you made that decision, how did you begin to heal, not necessarily physically, but heal mentally from that abuse? And did you start giving yourself credit for being as strong as you are?
Yeah, at that point, I started to dive into as much self-help books as I could find, and I did the work in the books. I just was not ready to reach out to a human for assistance, which eventually became my next step. I finally reached out, got coaches, one coach and then another coach, and so on. And I tried therapists.
Mhm.
Great. Talking about things is great, but I believe that coaches, we don't dig in very far. We start building up. And I think that's what helped. And then at some point I had dated and dated and dated. And so then it's finally time. I quit dating and completely worked on me. And that's when the major shift happened.
Wow. So what type of self-development skills did you try that didn't work? And then what type of self-development skills did you try that did work?
Well, what didn't work for me was therapy. And this is why I feel coaches are so awesome. The therapists stopped me from my growth and made me dig into the pain, into the hurt, into the things. And you and I have talked, so you know I have recently lost my husband, and I have learned that yes, I need to grieve,
Mhm.
but I don't need to be forced to grieve. And forcing myself to look at pictures and read stuff feels very forced to
Mhm.
grieve. So I didn't like that type of stuff. So that didn't work. And what really worked is having to see who I thought I was and feeling like I was that fake person, the person that I really didn't want to be, and to then look and see the person who I really wanted to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once I got all of that together and I worked on myself, I found my Mr. Perfect. And that's who recently died, is my Mr. Perfect. And in that sentence, a lot of people would say, well, why did God take him? He was such a wonderful person. Why couldn't they take his ex-wife who wasn't?
Right.
And I tell them, I'm like, if I was God, I wouldn't take her either. And I definitely would take him because he was awesome.
Wow. Geez, there's so much there, Tina. And again, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I don't want to gloss over the domestic abuse. What I would like to ask is, did you ever blame yourself? And if you did you ever start forgiving yourself?
So I was gaslit into believing it was my fault that I got a broken hand and separated ribs. And I can tell you, um, for about, ooh, 18 years, I did blame myself for that. I even said I was the one who broke my hand. Even though the hand got broken because he grabbed me, I'm a martial artist and I know how to release. So I released and my hand hit a door jamb.
Okay.
But then he threw me on the bed and he stuck his knee in my chest. And he blamed me for that. And I accepted the blame. And it was about 18 years or so.
Mhm.
And that's when I even had a therapist in there that
Yeah,
said, "Oh no, that wasn't your fault." But I couldn't see that.
unbelievable. It is unbelievable how people can manipulate us to believe things that we really know is not true. But I give you a lot of credit for your courage. Moving forward with your Mr. Perfect, how'd you guys meet?
Oh, it's a little magical story to me. We met on Match.
Okay.
Our first date, I didn't think was going to happen. I fell asleep prior to that date and I dreamt of these blue eyes.
Uh-huh.
And I woke up not feeling right, normal. I went to go change clothes and he texted and asked if we were going. I didn't think we were, so I reconfirmed that. I met him. Um, and as I'm walking up to where we're supposed to meet, because it was an outside venue where we were meeting, he kind of runs up there and he jerks off his glasses, and there's those blue eyes. And I was taken back by that. And then we went up, had a couple of drinks together, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. And then we went to dinner.
Okay.
And then we came back and had really good conversation. And then I went home. So now it's
Mhm.
in the middle of the night, maybe, I don't know, 11. And he texts me to make sure I made it home. And he goes, I wish I was still with you. And I jokingly said, well, you could be. And he said, what's your address? And I'm not joking. He showed up that night and never left.
Aw.
He was living with his dad because he was in the process of going through a very long divorce, 7 years. And so he showed up and he never left. And when I say never left, we eventually worked together out of our home. So we were together 24/7 and we still had date night every Friday.
I'm glad to hear that. I love that. I love that. Many couples don't continue that, you know, and it's very important to do that. What a story. I mean, there can be a Mr. Perfect or a Mrs. Perfect because it just depends on what we need, right? Everybody's
Exactly.
perfect is different. Yeah. So, with your work, what got you into being a divorce professional? Like, how did that materialize over the years?
Well, and I'm a certified divorce coach, restorative family mediator, and conflictual co-parenting coach, along with all the training that's in between those.
Wow.
And what happened is a series of things. You heard about my story,
Yeah.
and then in the middle of that story, and my husband, my dad was almost murdered by his second wife,
Oh,
shot at, and then finally driven over with a dually pickup truck,
oh, jeez.
leaving the tire prints on his back, literally from the bruise.
Oh my God.
And so I helped him out of that relationship safely and reserved the family farm. And then fast forward, I met my husband who had been going through a divorce already for 2 years. He was very upfront, let me know this. Well, the attorney eventually asked me to do paper investigation because they were so lost in all of the stuff that his ex was. She's very, very narcissistically abusive to him, to the point that even got physical. He had a tooth print where she had bit him on his back and drew blood, and that was the final straw, what
Wow.
started that. And going through that paper investigation, and I had helped other people divorce earlier. But when I realized I knew things that this attorney didn't know,
Mhm.
I was, there's got to be another way. So I went out and I found my school, which is the CDC, the Certified Divorce Coach
Okay.
program. And I got that certification, and immediately, before I even finished school, I started working. I just shifted my coaching,
Okay.
what I'd been doing for 30 years, over to divorce coaching.
Okay. So, aside from the obvious reasons for divorce, what have you found to be common patterns in behavior that would lead to divorce, and what could have not necessarily prevented it, but changed the path?
Um, well, I'm going to talk about normal divorce because I work in the high conflict arena, that from a
Okay.
toxic, narcissistic
Ah,
partner.
okay.
But a regular path
Yeah.
is that we as people, we just kind of grow apart,
Okay.
which is done because, like you had mentioned, we just kind of cruise through life. We don't pay attention to anything. We just cruise through life. Well, that's when Monday looks like Wednesday, that look like Tuesday, and all the days are the same.
Mhm.
We don't say I love you anymore. We stop having communications, and our fights about money. He's spending too much, she's spending too much. Those are the topics that happen. And so that's where, I had done all the work on myself. So my late husband and I had date night every Friday night.
Okay.
It was super important for us to get off work at 2 o'clock.
Mhm.
We didn't eat all day until then, and we went out and we just enjoyed ourselves. And we were back home so that we could be in bed
Yeah.
by 9 o'clock,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a good, wonderful evening for us.
I love that. I love hearing about couples who continue, whether it's girls' night out or guys' poker night or whatever. Um, because I mean, I was one who gave up that stuff, thought it had to be both of us all the time, and so we both gave up some of that independent stuff, and I don't think that's healthy. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm gonna ask you about couples when they're just starting to get committed to potentially something long term. I think it's good to have maybe a relationship coach early on, so you can talk about those little things that may bother you, that if you ignore could end up becoming the big things. Because I've talked to some younger couples who do go to relationship coaches before they tie the knot, get married, or whatever, or move in together, or anything. And they said it's been helpful because they learn to respect and appreciate the little quirks of the significant other if they're, healthy quirks. But do you see any benefit to doing something like that before a big commitment?
I do, I do. And if you belong to certain church groups, they used to do that. That was part of you being able to get married in that church, is you had to go through premarital coaching or therapy or whatever it was called. And those couples usually lasted much longer, if not stayed together.
Mhm.
They learn that there is diversity.
Right.
There's things like the money talk. When the money talk comes up, which should come up before you get married,
Mhm.
those are things that cause issues, and they did cause an issue early on in my relationship because they were not discussed
Right.
in
Right.
a proper way.
Hmm. Hmm. No, that's a very good point. You bring that up. I say that there's like these taboo topics that young couples, because we're kind of taught not to talk in public about, whether it's how much money do you make. So let's say financial, politics, religion, and maybe your views on having children, stuff like that. These taboo topics that a lot of couples don't dive into and learn the views of their significant other, and then they get married, and then the topic comes up, and they're blindsided or surprised, or you hear all these stories about so and so stealing from so and so's account and they didn't notice it, or all of a sudden she decided not to have kids. And are there such things as you see couples thinking that it's taboo like topics that you encourage them to potentially talk about? Because I'm sure, well, I'm not sure. When you're coaching some people, do sometimes the divorces not happen? Do they get back together? Can that happen?
I've only had one
Hmm.
one couple that ended up, they're still together now, but the reality for that one was there's not abuse in that relationship.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so if there's not abuse, so in couples I work with, there's
There's a high
abuse.
conflict. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my couples in most of my couples, I would say they need to get out of that. It's very unhealthy for the men and the women
Right.
that are involved in the abuse.
Right. Do you sometimes consult with other divorce coaches on things? Like, would there potentially be like a couple that you don't think you might not be right for them, or they might be not be right for you, and you could refer to somebody else? Does that happen in the field?
I do. I would like to be able to work with both sides, but
Mhm.
usually the person, the toxic person,
Mhm.
it's never their fault. So they're not going to reach out for help. So it's very difficult. Now, I'm trained in restorative
Mhm.
work, restorative mediation, and that is a technically a way to communicate and to work through people. So I'm actually trained where instead of just having the couple in
Right.
there and going through the mediation, I
Right.
can bring in other people. And if I bring in the attorneys, I do fishbowl work, which
Okay.
means that the attorneys sit on the outside. They don't talk
Okay.
during the mediation. If they need to talk to their client, we're separated so that they can talk separately.
Okay.
That saves the client money. It also speeds up the process of them being able to communicate kindly, respectfully. And that's what I'm trying to foster is respectful communication.
Well, can you explain what the whole restorative? What do you mean by restorative? Like, what is that?
So when my couples when they uncouple, most of the time they uncouple in one half here and one half there. My job in that aspect is to make them uncouple, get them to uncouple as two wholes.
Okay.
So we try to work through that communication as best as we can if there is no toxic abuse.
Got it.
If there's that kind of abuse, then I won't allow my couples to be in the same room.
Okay. Understood. Um, I'm now thinking of those couples where there is abuse and there's children involved. How, who's there to help those children? Are you able to reach out to colleagues who can then help the children with the trauma of their parents separating because of abuse?
Yes, and I work with a lot of therapists that are in there. I have therapists that I will have go find specific kinds of therapists in
Mhm.
specific locations because therapists have their own connections too. My connections to the therapists I have may not be enough or the right fit.
Okay.
And especially when we're dealing with autistic children
Mhm.
that need to have that special kind of touch.
Right.
And so I do have people that I work with
Mhm.
as coming back to the restorative end.
Right.
I can bring older kids. I won't work with them young in there. I want a therapist to work with them when they're young, but I can bring older kids into the circle. It's then not a mediation circle, it's a facilitated circle. So I'm facilitating the joining of the family to work as a whole.
Right.
If both parents can be there, great. If not, then we work with the one parent who is not the toxic partner, and we let the kids kind of communicate with me
Hmm.
with the inside of the circle, so to speak,
Right.
and the parent gets to be involved.
Right. Now, with what you do, you avoid having them to go through court, except for the actual going in the day and then getting that piece of paper when they walk out with the divorce decree, right? Because I went through mediation to stay out of the court system.
Mhm.
Yeah, that you find I if for with a good mediator, I think that's a very, very healthier approach. From what I've heard, the court system, depending on the state you're in, may not treat whether the man or the woman or the children as thoughtfully as they should. So I find mediation the the good first route to go if
Yeah.
you need to.
And it is definitely. I coach my clients to mediation. We do pre-mediation work. We set up things. We get all the lists and everything made for their mediator. Um, the mediator should be an intermediate, so they are not taking sides. Their job is to just facilitate the separation and the communication to be as civil as possible. Me, I'm on the other end with one person, the client being attacked by the narcissistic partner, and I work with that partner to be respectful to the other side, to set their boundaries,
Right.
and to be firm in their actions and not to let anybody's comments
Mm.
sway them in a way that they shouldn't be swayed. If they're not comfortable in making a decision, I tell them just to tell the mediator, we need to set another appointment. I need time to think about this one.
Wonderful. Okay. Now, your work, does it have to be in person, or are you able to remotely help people across?
All my work is remote. I work
Oh,
throughout the
okay.
United States and in all English speaking countries.
Okay, wonderful. Good to know. Good to know. Anything else you want to share that we haven't discussed?
I think that we've talked about all of the most important stuff. And, the one thing that I would say at this point is coming from the grief where I've been, in the last 10 months, coming from this grief, I am right there where my clients are. And I can tell you as the
Mm.
viewers that they're that spirit, however you look,
Mhm.
God, whatever you need to call your higher power,
Mhm.
there is a plan and it's in motion as we are sitting here talking. That is in motion. Now it's up to you to make choices and to follow your guts, to follow what you feel is a right thing. And I can say, in the course with talking to Drew, he is a great person to communicate with, especially in a divorce dealing with special needs kids.
Mhm.
And then with asking a divorce coach or some therapist that can help you, please reach out because as I put it earlier today, we can't do this alone. We can try, but we will fail and we'll continue to fail until we finally reach up and ask for help.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important to know that you're not alone. Um, you know, I give you so much credit. I want to talk about the topic of grief because everybody grieves differently, and some people feel inclined to give unsolicited advice on how to grieve. How would you respond to just grief in general and how it takes on different forms, and that's okay?
You know, I have felt I haven't grieved enough or properly
Okay.
because we are taught, just like with the linear way of life, right? We're taught that grieving widows should spend all their day crying and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do that. And I have cried, don't get me wrong. I have
Mhm.
spent hours in crying, but not all at once.
Okay.
And so it's just been here and there. And each of us have to go through our own piece of work, our own path to
Mhm.
get to where we're heading to. And we one have to have a target for where we're heading. I'm getting ready to come into the first anniversary of his death, which happens to be my birthday. And so I've set up to be with my son and his daughter. And I don't know that I want to share that day with anybody else yet, but I'm setting that up because they had to have the day off. And I know that the way I'm grieving feels the best for me. And so I beat myself up there for a little while thinking, gosh, am I not grieving? And then somebody said something recently. They said, I didn't grieve for my dad because I didn't feel like he ever died. He's always been right here. And I'm like, well, that's how come I'm grieving the way I am. I don't feel like he's left me. I feel like he's right here.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you, because some people are, convinced that they're not grieving the right way. And anytime something feels forced, just you go with your intuition. You feel whatever's best for you, whatever method is best for you. Um, so the audience certainly has captured the essence of Tina Huggins, and they're going to want to get in touch with you, Tina. So, audience, Tina told me that the best way to reach out to her will be either you can email or text. So, email is Coach Tina Lynn. So it's COACH, Tina, TINA, and Lynn is LYNN at gmail.com. Or you can text Tina at 719-580-6684. And would it be safe to say, Tina, that let's say the person hasn't yet decided whether or not they want to leave a toxic relationship and they reach out to you? Is it safe to say that that's a good person to come to you?
Yes, and that's a perfect time to come. That's when we can save you the most money
Mhm.
and help you to figure out. Just because I'm a divorce coach
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I foster just divorce.
Right.
I'm a certified life coach as well. And so I help my clients before the divorce, during,
Mhm.
and for years after in some cases.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I have two final questions for you. All right. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to use your imagination. You are in a beautiful, beautiful place, wherever your happy place is, and you're sitting down with 7 to 10-year-old Tina, and you want to give her advice about life. What would you tell her?
I would tell her that she could do anything she wants. She's just got to put her mind to it and not listen to the naysayers that are going to tell her that she's not smart enough, that she's not got the ability enough to do that, that she can do this, and that she has got all the magic within her that she needs to have.
Absolutely love that. All right, so switch hats. Now you're with young Tina, the young businesswoman entrepreneur, and you've got some business advice to give her. What do you tell her?
So I tell her, jump off the cliff. Plug your nose, jump off the cliff. Don't be afraid of the things that seem like you shouldn't do it. Those are the things that you need to do. The one things that feel the scariest are the ones that you need to do. They'll create the most change in your life.
I love that. Do it scared. Tina, I want to thank you for a few things coming on, but it be coming into my life. Again, Frank, thanks for introducing Tina and me. Tina, keep doing what you're doing. You're a wonderful human being. You've gone through a lot. And with grace and dignity, you've become a very, very strong woman who's helping other women and men out there to live their best life. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Drew.
Everybody out there, please take care of yourselves. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.